We're going down the path of a lot of uncertainty in this industry. Are you a pick'em fantasy app? Are you just a regular fantasy app? And then there's a sweepstakes, which is a whole nother conversation. They can get away with murder at this point. The better you get, the more limited you get. If you're a sports book and you're doing that, which is every sports book, call yourself a casino. Don't call yourself a sports book. That's not what that is. If you're going to call yourself a sports book, level the playing field. Yeah. And it's continued down this path to where the point is where it's like, it almost seems unfair. It almost seems unfair to the players. And that's why I'm here today. I'm here to present a different type of business model to give the power back to the players. What I'm going to be talking about today is called a peer-to-peer fantasy application called EPICK Fantasy Sports. If I go 1 of 2 and my opponent goes 0 of 2, guess what? You win. And I think that's the main value prop for this fantasy app, is that you just have to be smarter than your opponents. People don't know the edge that exists with this. I hope Prize Picks, I hope Underdog adapt this model, and I hope it doesn't become all about the money. I think that Novig and I think ProfitX and I think these peer-to-peer exchanges, amazing. Great business model. Do you know why? Because it takes money away from the sports books. Why are we not bringing it back? Like, why are we giving so much power to these sharp sports books? I call them sharp sports books because they're only getting sharper. Like, it's only going to get worse. That's not right. I decided to quit my Fulton Bank job, and I decided to go all in on content.
Wow.
Right below $1,000 in my bank account. I had no idea what that was going to mean. I had my girlfriend, who is now my wife, she cried her eyes out. She said, this is a horrible idea. Like, you're making a big mistake. I'm going to go all in, because you have to have that moment where you're just like, hey, like, I'm going to finally say no to the corporate world. It's not about the money. It's about changing the industry. And then, you know what? If I walk away from this thing, that I didn't change the industry, at least I tried. And that's kind of what I want to take away from this, because, with DGF, I had no idea what it was going to turn into.
What's up, Matt?
What's going on, man? Appreciate you having me, first of all.
Of course, man. This is actually super, super exciting because there's some big things coming in this talk, guys. And we're going to go over a lot of things in the industry, where we're going, the future of this, the past of this. And I'm just excited to have an incredible entrepreneur here with us.
Yeah, I'm more than excited to talk about, quite frankly, the future of this industry, because to be honest, I don't know where it's headed, but I can at least visualize the direction. I can see all kinds of different things, and that's kind of how I've been in this space, just kind of being a visionary. So anyway, I'm super excited to jump into it.
Yeah. And that's exactly why, because we've set up this interview to talk about this new business venture that you have started. Can you tell us from a broad perspective what it is?
Yeah, so let's rip the Band-Aid off. Let's just talk about it, man. We're going down the path of basically a lot of uncertainty in this industry. Like, there's sweepstakes apps, there's fantasy apps, there's sports betting, right? And when you break down the core, they're all kind of meaning the same thing. And again, like, legally speaking, there's all kinds of different routes we can go there. But when it comes down to it, it's turned into this house versus the player mentality, right? Like, it started back 3-4 years ago, and it's done nothing but do that. No. And it's continued down this path to where the point is where it's like, it almost seems unfair. It almost seems unfair to the players, and that's why I'm here today. I'm here to present a different type of business model to give the power back to the players. And it really is truly simple at the core. And what I'm going to be talking about today is called a peer-to-peer fantasy application called EPICK Fantasy Sports. Not EPICK.
Wow.
It is EPICK Fantasy Sports. And I've been on fire to talk about this for about 5 to 6 months. Been building this behind the scenes. And honestly, I just cannot wait to share my passion. So,
I actually congratulate you for that, because you've noticed something that the players in this game, whether you're doing it for fun, professionally, whatever it is,
right,
there's this barrier that they all cross. Some people get cut off that don't even understand why it's happening, and then the people that do it professionally,
right,
have this infinite struggle. And it sounds like you've come here to change some things up.
Dude, it's one of those things where, as a sharp sports bettor, and there's a lot more sharp sports bettors than myself, where they get cut off, and you kind of mentioned that. They get cut off from earning more money the better that they get, right? So you talk about any other type of profession. You talk about a fireman, you talk about a surgeon, you talk about a policeman, you talk about any kind of profession that you get better at, right? like the better you get, the more you make. Like that's just common sense.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're a sharp sports bettor, the better you get, the more limited you get. So like, hey, if I'm a professional sports bettor, like you're doing the things like to try to fly under the radar to almost earn more money. It's like, that's not right. Like that's, and then honestly, it comes down, it's a skill issue. Like that's what it really comes down to. The better you are, the more limited you get. And even sharps nowadays, like they're developing these strategies to like fly under the radar.
Yeah.
Why?
Not fair.
Why?
Yeah, it's because you're against the mafia.
You're against the it's against the books, against the mafia, whatever you want to call it. And that is the entire problem that I'm trying to solve with this next business venture. And with my last business venture, I was solving not even an issue at the time, but it was really just giving more power to the sharp sports bettors, giving more tools to the sharp sports bettors. And once that started to get more popular, we started to see that kind of, get harder to grow, right? That industry, the sharp sports bettors were harder to then grow on their own. Yeah. Doesn't make sense, man. Fundamentally, like anybody watching this can agree with that statement. It doesn't make sense. If you're good at your job, you get paid more. And any job that you've ever been in, that anybody watching has been in, it compounds at that point, and you should only enjoy that. And if you enjoy being a sharp sports bettor and you enjoy beating the books, then you should get rewarded for it, not penalized. Yeah, that's simple.
Yeah. It's not an even play field, because the sharp sports bettor first has to go through that journey of becoming sharp, figuring out how it works, and they think, hey, that's the wall they have to climb. But once they climb that wall, they realize there's a bigger wall.
Yeah. So if we want to jump into the actual business model, that's how it's going to look. EPICK Fantasy Sports is giving power to the players, and what that means is that it's going to operate just like a fantasy sports pick'em. I've used so many different different terminologies when going through this conversation, because really it's all the same stuff. So a pick'em fantasy app, for anybody who doesn't know, who's watching, a pick'em fantasy app is still versus the house. It's 100% against the house, and it's not a fantasy sports application. It's a fantasy pick'em application, dude. Like there's so many different terms. It's not an exchange. Like Prize Picks and these other competitors are not peer to peer, right? At least their main game type. They've now switched their different gameplays, but again, like it's under the hood. I'm not gonna push anything on them, but again, it's against the company, like the company Prize Picks. In order to make money as a sharp sports bettor, you have to beat Prize Picks. Well, with this new model, you have to beat your opponent to win, right? So the way it's structured is it's going to look and feel like a fantasy application where you go ahead and you pick your players, right? I really like LeBron James, over 24.5 points. I really like Anthony Davis. Rest in peace for anybody who's just watching this. Anthony Davis just got traded. Under rebounds, right? Like those are your bets that you're making, or your fantasy team that you're building, right? After you select those two players, you're not now betting that you're sharper than the fantasy app at that point. You're now betting that you're going to be sharper than your opponent. So you're saying, hey, I locked in these two picks.
Changes the game.
I locked in these two picks, and now I'm going to place my wager against another opponent. If I go 1 of 2 and my opponent goes 0 of 2, guess what? You win. If you go 2 of 2 and your opponent goes 1 of 2, you win. If you tie, you split the pool, like your $10 entry, right? You both put $10 in. Okay. You split the what would be the pool would be the $20 minus the rake, so let's call it $18. You each split that, and then you each win $9. Yeah. The cool thing is, you don't need to win your entire parlay to win. You just need to beat your opponent. You need to outsmart your opponents.
That's insane.
That's it.
That's insane.
And that model applies for not only two-mans, everybody's favorite on Prize Picks. It applies for 3s, 4s, 5s, and we have different types of slip types to appeal to the larger audience, right? So if you want to go bet the Super Bowl this week, you obviously, there's so many people, so many casual sports fans that are going to throw in their 10-leg parlays, their 12-man parlays. Well, guess what? To win on this app, you don't have to get every single one right. Yeah. And I think that's the main value prop for this fantasy app, is that you just have to be smarter than your opponents. Yeah. And
that changes it all.
It changes it all because it gives the power back to the players, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're still playing around with what we're going to call it. But yeah, tournament mode, again, like if you're going to beat your opponent in that tournament, get more player props right than your opponent, you're going to make money.
Yeah.
And at the base level, that's literally what I want it to sound like, and then what I want it to feel like. You just need to go through the app, select your player props, and if you get more right than your opponent, you're gonna make money. You're gonna be a profitable sports bettor, profitable fantasy sports bettor, whatever you want to call it.
From on paper, from all of this, in theory, the upside and the pros are so big. How do you see the traditional DFS sites like PrizePicks, Underdog, seeing your rise and saying, "Wait, hold on, we have to adapt to this because we're losing a lot of our players"? Do you see any of that? What do you see from that?
I want them to.
Yeah.
Why? Because I want this
to level
scene
up and level the playfield as well, right?
Exactly. And truly, like, I will say it now. I think that Novig and I think ProfitX and I think these peer-to-peer exchanges, amazing. Great business model. Do you know why? Because it takes money away from the sports books, because it is scalable. And I'm not going to sit here and say on this podcast that, I don't want to mention any one of my competitors, because at the end of the day, I just want this industry to grow. If this industry grows 50% next year, it's a win for everybody. I don't care if you're PrizePicks. I don't care if you're Underdog. I don't care if you're EPICK Fantasy. I don't care if you're FanDuel. If this industry grows, we all win.
And the winners will win.
The winners will win with peer-to-peer, for sure.
Peer-to-peer, yes, exactly.
And
because they'll have more liquidity available to bet against,
1,000%.
right? So it benefits everybody.
I hope PrizePicks, I hope Underdog adapt this model, and I hope it doesn't become all about the money, because it's very clear that some apps are just all about the money. That these sports books are all about the money. And at some point, and I get it, there's all types of different business owners. There are people who are just in it for the money. There are people in it to change the industry. There are people just because they like growing a business. There's all types of different personalities. Yep. But anyway, I guess my one thing that I'll say to the audience watching is, like, I hope that given my prior experience and my background, I hope you guys can see that, like, I'm trying to solve a problem. And that problem is that this industry is only going to get more regulated. It should only get more regulated, and it should only, get to this point where sports books should no longer be called sports books. They should be called casinos. They really should. Fantasy sports applications should set more restrictions. Like, I'm a fantasy sports app, and I'm still advocating for more restrictions on what should be a fantasy app. What are the rules behind it? Because right now there's this gray area, dude. There's this gray area. There's this, are you a pick'em fantasy app, or just a regular fantasy app? And then there's a sweepstakes, which is a whole nother conversation. It's like they can get away with murder at this point. And what I really advocate for is just a level playing field. Lay out the rules. If you're a sports book, if you're a fantasy app, if you're a sweepstakes app, why are they allowed to operate in this state? Why are they allowed to operate in this state if they're this model? And there's a lot of uncertainty right now. I hope it gravitates towards a more level playing field, and that's what I'll say about it.
And the people, or the investors, the early users, the beta testers, what have they seen? What kind of feedback have they been giving you so far?
So this is something we haven't talked about. So the app itself is, we have two investors right now currently. The investors are pretty close friends. They're also sharp sports bettors. So they very much believe in the vision, right? Like, and I hope that people watching this, like the sharp sports bettors, will see this vision. But you'll notice that I didn't include any other investors because we didn't have any. Why is that? Because they have uncertainty, because they know that, hey, I've had this said to me, like these exact words said to me, hey, why don't you just open up a fantasy, or why don't you open up a sports book?
Yeah. Why not just go for the
money?
Yeah, like what already works, because you already have the user base, you already have all of that. You can just transition. Why are you doing this the right way? Which is harder. Why? You
know the answer to that. Because if it was all about the money, I would have done that. and it's not about the money. It's not about the money. I could release a flip sports book tomorrow, and it would be all about the money. And it would, we could get a valuation. I could walk away, multimillionaire, in X amount of years, whatever. I don't care.
And give you baby payouts per month instead of everything.
Dude,
keep your money.
That model would make more money, undoubtedly, than a peer-to-peer fixed rake fantasy app that's probably not as appealing to the normal casual sports betting. I don't care. I don't care. And for me, that's where it all kind of lies. It's not about the money. It's about changing the industry. And then, you know what? If I walk away from this thing, that it didn't change the industry, at least I tried. And that's kind of what I want to take away from this, because with DGF, I had no idea what it was going to turn into. I had no idea that it would show sharp sports bettors a new edge, and it would turn into this thing, and then it would turn into so much controversy with the sharp sports bettors. And it's like, dude, all I wanted to do, like, my intentions at the end of the day were just to show an edge. Yeah. And I just want to solve a problem with this. I just want to provide another avenue for sharp sports bettors to make money. Because if I take myself out of the entrepreneur mindset, right, and I put myself into the sharp sports bettor shoes, it's like, if I had this other model, it would excite me. It would excite me to the end of the earth, and it would allow me another avenue to make a lot more money. And that's all it is about at the end of the day. There's another concept to this that I kind of want to talk about. There's a lot of new sports bettors in this space, a new influx of sharp sports bettors. They don't even know that fantasy sports peer-to-peer even exists today. Like, this isn't a brand new concept. It looks completely different than what my model is preaching. But DraftKings DFS has always been here. It's actually been here since, I think, like 2008. You can fact check me on that, but it's been here for a very long time. And the way it works, for anybody who doesn't know, is you're building a fantasy lineup, right, based on salaries that these players are predetermined, but it's set by these predetermined salaries. And you are to build a lineup, right? So, for instance, LeBron James could have a $8,000 salary. Anthony Davis, again, I don't know why I keep referencing those two, but Anthony Davis could have 10K, I guess, because they're fresh in my mind. Luka could have 12K. Anyway, you're building this salary, right? Yeah. And this roster of players. And then what you're going to do with that salary is you're going to turn around and play against other players in your pool. So it's quite literally the same kind of concept that I'm talking about. But this has been here forever, right? Like, this model has been here forever. Mm-hmm. And the industry's gone away from it. The industry has gone very far away from it. It's gone so far away from it to the point where we are now getting limited, which is why I believe the pendulum is going to swing back, and I wanted to swing back. And anyway, where I was going with this is that this provides scalability for the consumer, and people don't know it exists. People don't know the edge that exists with this. No, there might be There might be, if you log into Epic Fantasy one day, there might be a really good projection that might move even after we set projections, like 4 or 5 points, right? And there might be a lot of people. There might be a lot of people on that projection. Well, guess what? As a sharp sports bettor, that might be the edge. What if we actually don't take that one, and maybe we take another one? Guess what? If that busts, then maybe it was a good idea to fade that if enough people took it.
This opens up so many different possibilities for the sharps that understand the playing field that you can't do anywhere, basically, because the rules are set.
Why are we not bringing it back? Like, why are we giving so much power to these sharp sports books? I call them sharp sports books because they're only getting sharper. Like, it's only going to get worse. There's no scalability right now with that current model as a sharp sports bettor. That's the goal here. And when you give them a platform to figure out an edge and level the playing field, I think that's the win. Like, I think that is the ultimate win. And I brought up the business model, or I brought up our model of tournament mode, where the upside is if you beat your opponents, you take all of that, the money in that pool, right? So, for instance, let's explain it again. If you are playing a 6-man slip against, let's call it 30 other people, right? You win if you get more props right in your pool than your opponents. If you go 5 of 6, you get, let's just say you get 5 of 6, your entire other opponents, let's just, for the sake of simplicity, say they all go 4 or 6, right? You still win, even though you didn't go 5 or 6. And you take all their money minus the 10% rake. So that upside is there for what we call tournament mode right now. 50-50 is another game type, which I don't even think I talked to you much about it. But what it is you only have to beat 50% of your field to get 1.8x your cash. And what parlay game and what other you
lose everything.
You lose everything.
Yeah, you don't win anything.
So imagine, like, another example here. Let's say I'm doing a 3-man slip and I'm competing against 6 other people, and I happen to place, I happen to get 1 out of 3, right? And all my other opponents go 0 of 3, right? And I place in the top 50% there. I 1.8x my money, and I go 1 of 3. In what world is that possible?
I want to rewind a little bit now that we're getting to that point. I want to go back to the start of your career and kind of go on a little story of what you went through, where you started, how that led you to this. What was the aha moment? What did you see in the industry from also being, in Daily Grind Fantasy, that you said, hey, this is the next move? Let's take us to the beginning. A little roadmap there.
So we can go back to the very, very beginning where I got into content very first. Like that was the first thing I did.
What year ish? First record.
So I was doing content as a side gig while doing a full-time job as a risk management analyst. Don't fall asleep, at a major bank in Pennsylvania. Okay, so I was doing content on the side. I'd wake up at 5 a.m. This is how any entrepreneur starts their mornings. They have to get up super early. They have to grind out their side gig. They have to go to work, and then they have to make it work, right? Yeah. So 5 a.m. I wake up, and I record these DraftKings DFS pick videos, right? That's
okay. 2018?
Dude, I can't even remember the year. I want to say yes, like 2018, 2017, right before COVID. I know that for a fact. For about an hour, what I would do, and taking a page out of your book, I would record these videos and I would edit them like fully all myself and then upload it, have that done by 6 a.m. 6 a.m. I would get ready for work, leave by 7. That's
a grind, man.
There it is.
Daily Grind Fantasies. Daily Grind.
That wasn't even a thought by then, right? So here's the kicker though.
Yeah.
I was making on YouTube at that time, like per ad revenue, I was only getting like 200, 300 views a video. Like at that time, that was good for me, but it was probably raking in a total, like keep in mind I'm doing daily uploads, like $200, $300 a month as a side gig, right? On top of my salary from that job, which was like 45, 50,000. Keep in mind, 2017, I'm just working the corporate job, didn't know any better. My mindset was, hey, I have a side gig that I love, right? And I have this corporate job that I hate. So let's try to grind this out, see what I can do with it. It wasn't going anywhere at the time. And what happened was, this is a crazy story, right before COVID, literally a week before COVID, I had officially said, hey, I'm done. I'm done with my corporate job. I'm going to go all in, because you have to have that moment where you're just like, hey, like I'm going to finally say no to the corporate world. And I decided to quit my Fulton Bank job, and I decided to go all in on content.
Wow. Had
no idea. $1,000, right below $1,000 in my bank account. Had no idea what that was going to mean. I had my girlfriend, who is now my wife, my girlfriend at the time. She cried her eyes out. She said, "This is a horrible idea. Like, you're making a big mistake. Like, we have to have stability, just like any other person would want." But I was like, hey, this is my passion. This is what I want to follow. I love talking about sports. I love the fact that you can make money playing DraftKings DFS, and I love talking about it. That's all I knew. Like, all I knew that there was a passion behind it. So the week before COVID, I quit, right, my job, go all in on content for NBA. NBA shuts down the next week. Like, shuts down completely. Rudy Gobert touching the mic.
How was that feeling, man? Because, like, you went for risking it for the world to shutting down, and then that year, I know many of us can relate, it was a big shift in the world and in our personal lives, and you risking it right before. How was that, man?
Well, first of all, I thought it was a God moment. Like, God's telling me, hey, this is not what you should do. Like, that's what I thought it as. I thought that was a huge red flag.
Wow. And
I said, you know what, and I did put out some more applications, like, as that was happening, but I was also like, it's just like a crazy story. I I looked at the DraftKings DFS board. I was like, there's no real sports going on.
Yeah.
All right. And I say, the only thing going on right now is a League of Legends DraftKings slate. Like, for anybody who doesn't know what League of Legends is.
Esports, yeah.
Esports.
Yeah.
And it's like nerd to the max. Like, you think Call of Duty's nerdy, you think
League.
Madden.
I used to play League.
Everybody's played League of Legends. You're just afraid to talk about it, right? Like, everybody's played Diablo.
Yeah, World of Warcraft, RuneScape. Yeah,
everybody's played it, right? But this is a super highly competitive. Like, you have to have such a high IQ level to play this game. I just had to learn it because I had to understand how to beat other players.
5v5,
Dude, I had to understand the positions. I can't even remember the dude. Like, I wish I could come up with names that was so
mid,
top mid
jungle.
Dude, I'm calling you
ADC,
out. That's a nerd across the table right there. ADC carry. There it is.
Carry, yeah.
All I knew is that one team had to take over the other base at the other side, and they had to capture multiple objectives. They had to kill the dragons and the barons.
And you asked yourself, how do I beat this?
How do I understand this game mode enough to the point where I can construct fantasy rosters to then turn around and beat my opponents? I was at that point in time, because I decided I was to learn that game mode. I was the only content creator on YouTube that was posting anything League of Legends related on DraftKings, DFS. Crazy story. Like, this is true. You can look it up.
Nobody was betting on that then. Only like the only people that played the game.
But since every other sport in the entire world was shut down at that point, the only thing that they could bet on was League of Legends and CSGO and all these niche sports. So
esports, yeah.
Ironically, at that time, before I wasn't getting traction at that point in time, the entire channel started skyrocketing, and it was just like,
yeah,
that was the God moment.
That's timing right there. Also, people's attention coming more online, more people watching, it's massively consuming more media than in the history of humanity. Like, people don't realize the world we live in today because it just happened so fast. And now it's normalized for your grandma to be on TikTok or whatever. Before it wasn't. Yeah. Now, so yeah, you caught a wave right there, man.
I caught a wave, but it wasn't my intention. Like, it was just like, hey, that's I have to make ends meet, and I have to provide content because that's what I just bought into. And I told my girlfriend, like, hey, like, this is the future. Yeah. Every sport shut down. So that is, like, you ask about my background. That is literally how I guess my content career was born. Esports. Like, who would have thought? And, you know, from there I went into CSGO. I think they did like Call of Duty, like all the esports you can imagine, like that they could release, because DraftKings DFS had to make money too. So they're, what are we going to allow people to bet on? Yeah. So they started posting all the sports. There was a point in time where people were betting on the Madden live streams. Like, they would they would simulate games. This is crazy. Like, they would simulate like different Madden games, and people would bet on them. Like, on just like AI simulations or something like that. Well, I don't know about if AI was that big then, but if you ever load up like a Madden or a FIFA or any type of sport game,
you can just run it.
You just run it.
Yeah. Without
well, whatever, like Superstar whatever. And then people would bet on it. Like, it's actually kind of genius. Like, I kind of wanted to bet on it. Like, maybe drunk at like 2 a.m. But maybe, you know, not seriously.
That sounds
fun. but anyway, that's what they were doing, and they would have you construct different lineups based on the freaking Madden players in the game. So they would set a price to these. As a sharp sports bettor, you're like, hey, there's an edge there, right? Like, there's a Madden simulated fake player that has a 5,000 price tag, but I just saw him in a simulation go for 2 touchdowns. Like, I know he did, and I know that player is going to be low owned in my contest.
Yeah.
I could go days talking about this concept of like this edge that all these sharp fantasy sports players, we'll call them, had, and it was scalable. No longer. We are in a day in this industry where this type of business model is dying, and these sharp sports bettors are gravitating towards a non-scalable way to sports bet, and I want to get away. I just want to get away from it. It makes sense for it to swing back into this peer-to-peer model. Yeah.
I want to ask you something now that there's this shift going on, right? What do you envision being the biggest challenge with this new
That's actually a great
playing
question.
field that you're creating?
the one thing that I'm going to bring to this platform, I believe, is a huge player base. Something that we've built at DG Fantasy is the huge amount of just sports fans in general. People who want to watch sports, but then absorb the sport and then want to physically beat the sports book, right? Like sharp sports bettors.
Yeah.
And then the other challenge is getting every single one of these casual sports fans from these other sports books to buy into this model, right? Because if you think about the typical sports, bettor, like the typical, I'm talking about the 99% of people, they're going to watch a sports game and they're going to bet on the sports game, and they don't go into that sports bet, which is crazy because me and you don't think this way.
Yeah.
They go into the game and sports betting they don't really care what happens with that amount of money that they bet. Mm-hmm. They just do it to have some kind
of
of
excitement to the game.
Right. And some people literally watch the games because they have a sports bet. And if you're a sharp sports bettor, you do that as well. But like some people literally like, do you know what? The Lions game's coming out. I'm going to bet this player to go over under this prop to watch this game, just to have something
for fun. Yeah.
It might be $1, it might be $5. And like what I've come to realize is that people don't even want to make money that way. They just literally want stake in the game.
Yeah.
And
multi-million-dollar business based on fun.
Based on fun, and I don't want to use the
passion.
Word yeah. And from a sportsbook perspective, they know this. Like they know that sports bettors are just going to throw,
and they don't care if your life is being ruined, which is sad. It's
predatory. I'm just gonna say, like it's predatory.
That's why I call it mafia without shame, because they will ruin people's lives. And I've seen this in Latin America all day, every day. Here in America, at least, people have some sort of disposable income, and some people still go to ruin no matter what. But in Latin America, more third world countries, sports books dominate. They dominate the social ecosystem, you could say, because their passion for sports, I'm not going to say it's bigger or lower, it still is big. Mm-hmm. And more people will destroy their own lives. And I don't want to go and say and be mean and say, hey, they deserve it, you did it, but the sports books enable it, and they invite them to continue to get destroyed instead of putting a stop on them.
Let's take that one step further. In what world does it make sense for those same sports bettors that you're describing, for the sportsbook to allow them to bet more, but then if they turn around and win, they aren't allowed to bet more exactly at that point? Works. How does that make any sense?
That's exactly how the world we live in, which is not fair.
And what I advocate for, and this is like almost separate from my business model, and I always will advocate for this, like if you're a sports book and you're doing that, which is every sports book, call yourself a casino. Don't call yourself a sports book. That's not what that is. If you're going to call yourself a sports book, level the playing field. Yeah. Meaning that, hey, if your players are winning, allow them to win a certain amount, but also limit their downside. Be fair. Why don't we play fair? Why don't you guys be good at your jobs? Why don't you set good, accurate lines? And why don't you actually set the level playing field to where, hey, every player can win can bet $500 on each bet, but they can also only bet $500 if they keep losing. Why are they allowed to then bet thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars? The downside, right? Like you want more money from them. That's the real reason. So, if you want to call yourself a casino, just do it. Why don't you just call yourself a casino? Anyway, that's a little off tangent, but it's like it's so real. Like it's just not.
Yeah. No.
It's not reasonable at this point, and
it's also.
Anyway,
I don't want to say the word funny, but the NFL was so against this in the beginning. They were like, we don't want FanDuel of this. But once they got a little bit of the pie, they were all like, not a little bit, but we're good. And now you see FanDuel, DraftKings on baseball. DraftKings is more on everywhere. MLB. Before, there was a little bit of morality, I guess. But now money comes in. Even the leagues don't care, which is not good.
Exactly what you're saying is correct. Like anybody with a moral compass can see what you're saying is correct. However, there are people that exist in this industry who don't have a moral compass, right? And what I do advocate for, and the many lawyers that I've talked to throughout this journey to get licensing for fantasy sports, the one thing I've kind of come to realize is that this space is so unregulated that really anybody can get away with murder. Like anybody can get away with anything. Yeah. They can call themselves anything they want. and they can, as long as they have a sportsbook license, guess what? They can't really do everything they want, but they pretty much can. And, not to get political or anything, but it's something that my app, EPICK Fantasy, will always advocate for, and that's fair play, which is a huge problem, clearly, that we just talked about for the past however long that we're fighting for.
Okay, Matt, so the question now is, how can your previous affiliates, partnerships benefit from EPICK?
A lot of ways. First and foremost, they can win because we do the one thing about our affiliate program. We say affiliate program, we say partnership. It's a community. That's really what it is. And this community is a bunch of sharp sports bettors that are just looking for an edge. EPICK, for one, just provides another edge. Like, just straight up inherently, it provides another edge. Yep. But also it allows our affiliate network to scale their bankroll. The one thing about my previous business model that I have learned from is that this business model was in the hands of the sports books. And what I mean by that is that the sports books limited its upside, like 100%. If my customers are buying a product, a tool, where the tool's job is to beat the sports books and take money from them, and then the sports books turn around and limit them, well, guess what's going to happen to my business? It's going to limit the upside. Yeah. In what world is that good for a business owner?
No, because you got to keep finding new users instead of just.
Well, what do you think I did? Over the past 2 years, and the affiliate network that I have. Well, guess what? They don't have to worry about this with this new business model. Yes, they have to worry about new edges, but guess what? Like, inherently speaking, if you're a sharp sports bettor, you're doing that anyway. The sharp sports betting crew is always going to find new edges. You know this better than anybody else. Like, there's a new edge every day, and there's new talk, there's new trade, right? There's new edges, not only against against the house sports books, but now more than ever against other players, because other players are going to think a certain way, and then they're going to migrate away from this thinking once enough people catch up to it. Anyway, there will always be an edge for my affiliate network, for DGF's affiliate network, for any sharp sports bettor network, for this application. And the bigger it gets, the more of an edge that they're going to have against other sports bettors.
I love that the real implementation of your words. You're not just saying, "Hey, here's an even playing field." You're saying, "Hey, here's the even playing field, and hey, here's how you win in this playing field." It's like you're creating the ecosystem for sharps, or the smart people, quote unquote, to actually win, and not just win 1 week or 1 month, to keep on winning.
They're going to, and you bring up another good point, because back in the day, back when I was this age, correlation was allowed on these fantasy apps. The whole controversial topic. Guess what?
The C word.
It's back. So there's no. But my whole point here with this EPICK Fantasy application here is that there's no restrictions. The only restrictions that we have to have as a fantasy app is that we have to select from at least 2 different teams, which isn't hard to do at all. You just can't simply bet on one single player. You just bet on 2 different players, and they can't be from the same team. They have to be from different opposing teams. But other than that, your rules are whatever you want them to be. You can select, I'm releasing an edge here, QB plus receivers from the same team. You can do whatever you want, right? And for soccer, you can do shots on goal versus the overs for opposing goalies. You know how this goes. Anyway, there's so many. My point being is that there's so many edges to be found with this,
and recreated and rebrought back.
If there's too many people that are now doing correlation, well, guess what? Maybe you uncorrelate now. Anyway, I'm just speaking out loud, and these are the type of things that we've seen with DraftKings DFS that have scalability. And now we're bringing to this player prop industry, we're bringing a scalability. And I hope that enough people buy into this ideology of what I'm bringing to the table, because if we do, we're going to be one of the biggest fantasy apps here in a couple of years.
I'm excited. Yeah. I think that brings me to the next question, which is the uncertainty of the future. But what do you see? So fantasy sports and sports betting have evolved a lot in the recent years, right? Now we have exchanges. Well, a Betfair exchange existed, but nothing in the U.S. So where do you see the industry going? Because now there's a new book in every week, seems like.
Yeah.
Before, where do you see this going? Where is this going, Matt?
Yeah, let's talk about the progression. So we talk about the DraftKings salary format, and then we talked about the sports betting. Like DraftKings went out and got sports betting licenses, and then launched a sports book, and then it went to this player prop, right? Like sports book, and then fantasy app, like this fantasy app pick'em type business model was adapted. Yeah. And then it operated in this huge gray area. And then there was this huge boom, right, of all these people operating in this gray area. For me, I think that the industry is just simply going to what is scalable from a betting perspective, from a sharp sports betting perspective, for really everybody that wins, right? And I'm not going to sit here and say, yeah, it's definitely going to be peer-to-peer. But I am going to sit here and say, like, if there are no more if the audience continues to grow at the rate it does, and there's continued support for peer-to-peer apps, for sports books, for exchanges, call it whatever you want, there's just going to be more sports fans, and there's going to be more sports fans putting down money, whatever it may look like. But I do think that, you know, with that comes territory. There's going to be all these sports books that are going to turn around and limit their customers. So they won't continue to grow. But the fantasy apps that allow their fan bases to grow are going to obviously grow. And your exchanges of the worlds, obviously competitors now, but like they're going to continue to grow because their model allows both sides to compete against one another. And again, like they're not going to be limited, so therefore those players are going to scale their bankroll and they're going to continue to grow. Anyway, now it becomes this conversation seems like a marketing, you know, but it really is like that simple, and that's what I intend to make it, you know, appeal like to the sharps and the casual sports bettor and the people who are just, you know, betting $1 and that just want to watch the game. So.
Yeah, and to be fair and honest, from a business and entrepreneur's perspective, you saw a problem, right? You saw sharps getting limited, but then you saw the amount of liquidity just being held up in jail waiting to be used, which we're talking hundreds of millions of dollars just waiting to be played, that no book wants to take it. Right. And you just saw, hey, you know what? Let's level the playing field. Once again, same word, but it's literally that. Bring all of that volume in, and hey, let's let for the other people that are still gonna bet on that or gamble that away somewhere else, and make it favorable for both. Totally. And you have basically just a genius idea, man. Congrats, man. I mean,
I appreciate
it. It is, because it's a lot of work, and just coming into realization, it's also, you know, give you props. I have had my business ventures, but just spotting out, it all strands and is born from spotting an opportunity, right? And you acted on it, and you've developed it, and here it is.
And you've seen the app. I mean, it looks pretty sleek. And by the time you guys will see this, one thing I want to bring to the actual app itself is like the simplicity, right? Like I never want. Here's the thing with like a product.
It's very familiar.
Yes.
It's all very familiar. You already know what you're like. Oh, there's no learning how. Oh wait, what does this mean? No, it's familiar. You jump right in. You get everything right away. And the chance that whoever's listening still doesn't understand why this model is beneficial for everybody. Anybody hearing EPICK for the first time, why should they check it out? They don't care about any of this, any of that. They just want to play. Why should they be in EPICK? Forget the sharps, forget the casuals. Random, it could be either. Why should they check it out? Why should they withdraw from their DFS apps and say, "Hey, I'm done playing here. I'm gonna go there." Why?
You have more of a chance to beat another player than you do a sports book. Plain and simple. You have more chance to win by beating your friends than beating a sports book. Period. These sports books are pouring millions and millions of dollars into making sure that you do not beat them. It's going to be very hard to do that. And yeah, I'm not saying it's impossible. And guess what? When you do, you're going to be limited. Yeah. I've already been over this many times. But when you come to EPICK Fantasy and you want to compete and you want to pick your favorite players, it's going to be inherently easier to win. It's going to be inherently easier to lose, actually,
even
too.
The fun casuals are still going to have a better chance at winning.
Better chance to win.
It shows why this isn't just another DFS app. It shows that it's just a different way of interacting in this industry as a whole.
Yeah. Another thing, too, about this is, like, this is just the beginning of the app. there's going to be so many different things that we do. You know, people will talk about the social component of apps. Of course, we're going to bring that. We're going to bring all kinds of, you know, social aspects to it, where, you know, maybe you could see each other's avatars. You could even purchase other avatars. We want to gamify this.
Make it, yeah.
Totally. And that's something that's lacking. Like, everybody's copy and paste these days. Like, like
high scores maybe for the users, like high score prizes.
Write that down. Like, keep writing down things for me, because I'm on fire to bring all these ideas to the app. And I want to gamify. I want to make it fun. I just want to make it fun, dude. I don't want to make it, hey, I am now better as a Sharp Sports bettor, and now I'm getting limited, and this app interface sucks, and I can't find an edge anymore. I'm gonna shut it off. Like, that's not good. That's just not good for the industry. It's you know, like when you play a video game, you log in for the first time, you log in for the very first time, you have so many things to unlock, you have so many different objectives. Like, I want it to feel like that. I want it to feel like there's unlimited potential here, and won't stop till that happens. Won't stop.
Why do you think it took so long for the industry as a whole to catch up?
To what exactly?
To create peer-to-peer betting in the States.
Yeah.
Why did it take 5 years?
Because the sports books could get away with it, and for the first time, the industry as a whole is starting to crack down on it.
Yeah, they realize that, hey,
starting to scare it a little, scare the sports books, scare the regulatory groups at these sports books and these fantasy apps and sweeps, whatever you want to call it. Like, if you're putting down money for a game, like whatever you want to call that, like regulatory issues are breathing down your neck constantly. And I think that's why it's taking so long, is because that didn't happen before, and now it's starting to become more strict. And I advocate for that strictness. Like, I want it to get to a point where you're not running a fantasy app and you're competing against the house. Doesn't make any sense. Yeah. It doesn't.
Yeah. Do we know? Well, I guess these are now, by the time this comes out, I hope EPICK should be out.
It should be out. Ready to download. Link in the description, I guess.
Description. You know? It's going to be available in half of the states, 20 of the states-ish.
That's a great question.
What's that looking like? Yeah.
So this is actually a great teaching point. So 24 out of the 50 states are unregulated, meaning that they allow fantasy sports operators, EPICK Fantasy, to operate in with little to no restrictions whatsoever. Meaning that they can pretty much do anything as long as it abides by the fantasy sports rules. I don't even know if you want to pop it up on the screen or whatever, but there's something.
Here it is.
There it is. It's just basically like a small snippet of what it means to be a fantasy sports app. You have to have at least 2 players from 2 different teams. Which is why you can't do single bets, like for instance, straight bets. Anyway, there's just like this small list of things that you have to do, and as long as you abide by those rules, hey, like you can roll that out in our state. Pretty cool. 24 out of 50, so almost half the states. And then there's like 10 to, we'll call it 15 other states where you have to pay for a license to do it, as long as you abide by those rules, but you have to go through like an application process. We are for sure going to tackle those states next, like any normal business owner would do, tackle the states that are cheapest, and then leading up to the more expensive states, the ones that make the most sense, like the people the states who have the most people who are sports fans, obviously. And then the next step would to be turning around and getting a sports betting license, even though we aren't a sports
book, not.
But we want to operate in your jurisdiction. Yeah. So, but we'll still always, and let me make this very clear, we will never be against the house. We will always be peer-to-peer. So whether it requires a sports book license, whether it doesn't require, whether we operate as a sweepstakes app, whatever the case may be, like we're always going to be peer-to-peer.
This might be a very far off into the future question, but is there any projection to be an international peer-to-peer DFS?
Great. Then again, that's a great question. That I don't have the answer to yet.
In Europe,
wouldn't that be
Australia, awesome? Asia is massive. The whole world loves. Every single continent in today's day and age loves sports betting now more than ever in the world. I forget where
I saw the stat, but there's more of a sports betting handle. I think it's, don't quote me on this, but I think it's like China, where it's like Asia
is massive,
crazy.
I'm gonna tell you a story. I was just in Asia, in Indonesia and Thailand. Mm-hmm. So I was in Bali, right, Indonesia. This was December, and I'm chilling in the hostel, right, and then it's already at night. Everybody's kind of like shuts off. I'm a little wavy, to be honest. And I'm just walking in the strip, in the beach strip. I was like, these islands, Gili Islands, small islands, maybe like 1,000, 2,000 people live in that island. And then I just randomly hear just a little party of the locals, and I'm just like, yo, what's up? So I come in, and then this dude pulls up he's on his phone, right? I see him on his phone.
He's playing Prize Picks.
He's on his phone.
Okay.
Even better. And he has a live stream of a cockfight. Sports betting.
And they're betting on it.
And it's the stream of, on the sports book when there's like the game and under, you see the lines.
Of course.
Literally live betting, like just DJing. And I'm just like,
interesting.
Wait, what? And then I look at obviously from I was like, wait, this is pretty big out here. But how big is it? Asia is the biggest gambling continent in the world. Where can people follow along where EPICK is going?
Where EPICK is going, so
or get involved if they want to some way say, hey, I want to get involved.
That's a great question. I will the one thing I've always believed in is our partnership affiliate network. The one thing I did not have when I started out as a content creator is a way to monetize myself. Very early on, like I could go and try at DraftKings DFS, hey, could I get a CPA for promoting your product? They wouldn't even respond to my emails because I was so small as a content creator. There's just no way to monetize yourself. The one thing with DGF that we did that we crushed at is getting our product out there through our affiliate network, like getting the word of mouth out there.
Yeah.
EPICK Fantasy is going to be no different. I expect it to be that times hopefully 20, right? So if you want to promote EPICK Fantasy, I don't care if you have 0 followers. I don't care if you have 20,000 followers. I don't care if you have 200,000. The door is always open. And if you want to promote it, if you believe in the vision, call me.
Yeah.
Literally, shoot me a DM on Twitter. Do whatever you need to get in contact with me. Like, I'm all for it. I'm hopefully I have shown you guys that I want this space to grow, and I want you to also grow with the industry.
Is that a affiliate program or bonuses, whatever you want to call it, going to be as attractive as, or is it going to be better than the typical sportsbook, DFS, peer-to-peer?
Yeah, so that's actually
that's
great, because the way that we're incentivized, right, as EPICK Fantasy, is the more people we get, the more the company makes. Whereas with sportsbooks, that's not necessarily the case. Naturally speaking, the more people that they get, the more that they're going to make, but also the more sharp sports bettors they get, the less they're going to make. So with us, we don't care if you're a sharp sports bettor or you're a casual
bring
sports
in all
fan.
Your sharp friends.
Bring in whatever you want. Like, bring in all your friends, bring your family, whatever you guys want. We're going to make money the bigger that we get, period, and the more that you guys compete against one another. So that's the way it should look.
Well, I think that is a great way to finalize this. I want to say a couple of last words, and you as well, before you end this. I'm really excited, number one, to be a part of this, and just the initial interview talk. I've had my fair of barriers that I've had to battle against in this industry as a winning sports bettor. Constantly funds locked away, having to threaten books with emails, getting my betting groups, and just seeing that this peer-to-peer model is being more spoken of, created more. It's just a great time to be alive. I don't know what else to say, man. It goes back to the beginning of where else in the world can you just jump into a business model, side gig, whatever, professional, full-time thing, and just straight up start banking so much that it's not even fair, to be honest, to most careers. I don't know, that sounds kind of cocky or whatever, but it isn't, because people go to college to make $5,000 a month. You can make that in 2 days sometimes with massive bankroll, right? Don't want to get into that, but it's just an incredible time to be alive, to be honest.
And timing's everything in this industry. I don't know where it's going. I don't claim to know where it's going. I can only guess where it's going, but I hope it's going towards this peer-to-peer fantasy sports betting, sweepstakes, exchange, whatever you want to call it. I hope that it stays in this direction. I hope it goes towards this direction. I hope it becomes a regulated space that allows for people to play against one another on a level playing field.
Yeah.
And that is the only thing that I intend to do over the next 5, 10, 20 years, whatever it takes, within the means of how much I can get out of this. So anyway, dude, I really appreciate you. And as a sharp sports bet, it's really cool to see that, you have this perspective of things, and hopefully you'll also play. So.
Oh, of course. I'll be there. Trust me.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys for watching.
Thank you so much.
Any questions, any socials, emails, DMs, links down here. And welcome to EPICK, guys.
Yes, sir. Download today.
Peace.
Dude.